welcome to Mamamia Out Loud, what women are actually talking about on Wednesday, the 20th of August. My name is Holly Wainwright.
I'm Jessie Stevens.
And I'm Stacey Hicks.
Welcome to Out Loud, Stacey Hicks.
Thank you so much.
It's very exciting to have you here.
I'm come dressed as a taller version of Jessie Stevens.
You
we are in the
actually
same
have.
shirt.
Tell the people who you are in case they don't know.
So I am Mamamia's deputy editor, and you might have heard me on Parenting Out Loud, and you will hear more about that next week.
And we should say, yes, Stacey and I are wearing the same shirt. Okay.
Yeah. Isn't this shirt viral or something?
Yes. It's
I
a
have it in
viral shirt.
3 colours, and I forget what I wore before I owned
have
the
it
shirt.
in 2.
I really like it. Should I need to get it? But then I'm just like, then we could all be wearing it.
Yeah.
The thing about this shirt is every time we wear it to work, we run into 3 other people who have it. I went to the ABC recently for something and they stopped me. They said, you've got the viral shirt. And I was like, that's something no one's ever said to me. This shirt, it has sleeves and stripes. I cannot express how there is nothing interesting or exceptional about this shirt, but the hold it has on the culture needs to be acknowledged is Lioness.
Yep.
It's $60.
Yep. It's $40 at the moment.
Geez, I need to call Mia Freedman, our friend, and find out how many of those she owns because it's just something that she likes. It's a viral item of clothing.
It's weird that Jessie and I are early adopters. That never happens in my experience.
Okay, back to business. Things that made our agenda today. Stacey.
There's a new Netflix documentary that will make you rethink one of the biggest reality shows that we all watched.
There's also a very important roundtable taking place in Canberra, and we are going to elbow our way in and offer some suggestions.
Very helpful suggestions. And how kitchen cabinets brought one of the biggest self-help gurus in the world to her knees. Yes, we're talking about Mel Robbins. But first, what if you didn't have to vote? What if you didn't have to bother your pretty little head about complicated issues like human rights, environmental issues, defense, education, and health spending? Well, there's someone pretty high up in the Trump administration who's got some good news for you.
He's patting you on your little head and
It
he's
really
saying,
is.
don't you worry, little lady.
Don't you worry. Don't have to think about this stuff. Something called head of the household voting is being floated as a jolly good idea by the US Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. He recently made a far-right Christian fringe belief seem pretty mainstream when he shared a video to his X feed. In this video, right, there's this controversial pastor called Doug Wilson, and he, for a very long time, has been founding his own little empire of very conservative Christian churches in the Midwest of America. And recently they have got more and more popular and they're spreading and spreading and spreading. And he's just opened one in Washington, D.C. And devotees of this church have the ear of the Trump presidency, as evidenced by the fact that Hegseth retweeted this video in which the pastor expressed that ideally every household should get 1 vote. And I bet you can't guess who in the household gets that
toddler.
vote.
Is it the toddler?
Is it the dog? It is the man, assuming that, of course, there is a man in every household.
Apparently a woman can get the vote if she's widowed.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Wow,
That's
what a win for
that's
us.
Nice. Would this be a relief to us, friends, if the men took care of all that messy having opinions shit?
Look, I have some feelings. Firstly, I read this and I went, not all Christians.
Is that your first defense?
I'm horrified, and I feel as though it's got to be put in the context of Hegseth. This isn't just an idea he's playing with. He has ousted multiple senior women from roles in the military since he has been appointed this role. He went through the Pentagon's Women, Peace and Security program, took out a whole lot of female roles because he said that they were woke and that they were prioritizing feminism.
Oh my God. Why am I laughing?
It feels pretty horrific. But I actually heard Hannah Rosen speak last week at this conference, and she wrote a book 13 years ago called The End of Men. And she made a prediction in that said, and her argument was basically that women, college graduates going through the roof, women were making more money, women's roles are plastic and malleable, whereas men are cardboard. It feels like they're unable to evolve from a very traditional role, and there are some issues there. She wasn't celebrating the end of men. She was just saying we're seeing a cultural shift. She had 2 predictions. She said one of 2 things is going to happen. The first is gender roles become more flexible and we just all evolve and mix and it's this great utopia.
I vote for that version.
Well, Holly,
Let's do it.
the other option was that men can't handle it, and all hell breaks loose. That was her second prediction, and I have a terrible feeling that her second prediction came true.
Oh.
Definitely sounds more familiar.
Yeah.
Speaking of not all Christians, though, Jessie, did you know there is only one country in the entire world where women are not allowed to vote? Do you know what it is?
Where?
Vatican City.
Is it really?
Yes, it is. Obviously, there's some complexities in that not all countries in the world have democratic voting systems.
Yes.
But universal suffrage everywhere except for the seat of Catholicism.
Wow.
I'll just leave that little bit there for you.
Whoever loses the most weight wins $250,000.
We were not looking for people who were overweight and happy.
I'm a secret eater.
We were looking for people who were overweight and unhappy.
Maybe it would fix my marriage. Maybe it would fix me.
I'll do anything to be on your show. The Biggest Loser!
They were really reinforcing the stereotypes.
People like making fun of fat people.
And producers love that.
This week, one of the most confronting documentaries I've ever watched hit Netflix, and it wasn't about a brutal crime or a multi-million-dollar love scam. It's called Fit for TV, the reality of Biggest Loser, and it focuses on the phenomenon that was the weight loss reality show, The Biggest Loser. For those who might not remember it, the US version first aired in 2006, and the Australian format followed pretty soon after that same year, where overweight and obese people could sign up for what was essentially a televised fat camp. They were made to exercise for hours on end, consume as little as 800 calories a day, and they were screamed at by the trainers in the name of entertainment. The contestants competed to win up to $250,000 in the US. It was almost the same here, about $200K, with Danny Cahill breaking the US record by losing 55% of his original body weight. So to put that into perspective, he lost 195 kilos in 6 months during the course of the show. And in this doco, former contestants, even one of the trainers, Bob Harper, and the executive producers of the show talk about the toll the show took on the contestants and the subsequent fallout for them. And I think the reason it's so confronting for so many women is thoughts about weight play as a constant monologue in our heads. They definitely do in mine. And many of us know the calories of everything we consume. We're always kind of feeling like we should be taking up less space and punishing ourselves with exercise. So this show has a lot to answer for in the role that played in driving that messaging home. But I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that as straight-sized women, we can't even begin to imagine the toll this show took on overweight or obese people watching and seeing that messaging reinforced, even through the name of the show being so negatively coded. We had a conversation this morning and producer Ruth shared some deeply personal feelings about this documentary, and we're going to share what she said in her words with you now.
I am fat. 3 little words, that's all they were. But as I said them, I could feel my throat constrict and a wave of tears pushing against the back of my eyeballs. How embarrassing, how bloody embarrassing. This was me, producer Ruth, who's supposed to be, in charge of things on Out Loud, crying in our planning meeting this morning, a meeting we have before every episode of the show. Out Louders, it wasn't the best start to the day. Look, there is context to this. I don't normally blurt out things about myself, which, frankly, are patently obvious to anyone with eyeballs, because, yes, while I'm here, I might as well go the whole hog and tell you that I'm not just fat, as in I could lose a few. I'm not just a bit curvy or voluptuous or plus size. I'm actually morbidly obese. And yes, it is a fucker. The reason I was saying I am fat was because we were talking about the Biggest Loser doco on the show, and I had things to say about it. There's no doubt in my mind that you don't have to be obese to talk about this doco. That goes for any topic in my book. You want to talk about something, go ahead and talk about it. It's just that on this day, on this morning, in this meeting, I was the only fat person at the table and had a perspective that might be different to my straight-sized colleagues. I'm also really aware that this is my perspective and mine alone. I don't pretend for 1 minute to speak for every fat person out there. I watched the Biggest Loser documentary like someone rubbernecking at a car crash. You don't want to look, but you can't stop. And when you do look, you're both horrified at what happened and ashamed at the part of you that enjoyed the spectacle in the first place. That's what the show always was for me. Fat people paraded around for the entertainment of the thin, with a side order of inspiration, so the cruelty could be passed off as kindness. What I liked about the documentary was the honesty. Finally, someone said what should have been obvious all along. Those transformations weren't success stories. They were trauma responses. Starve anyone, scream at them long enough on national TV, deprive them of sleep, and they'll shed kilos. Hell, even I would. It's not discipline, it's desperation. You could see it in their faces, those dead-eyed weigh-ins, bodies shaking on treadmills. Those contestants were being punished for being fat. The network made money out of it. The audience were entertained. That's how TV works. Hearing that honesty felt good, like a weird kind of justice. Too little, too late, but something at least. But then came the other part, the hatred. Because the documentary was also a mirror, and mirrors aren't kind to people like me. I won't look in one. A compact is the largest mirror in which I'll ever allow myself to see my reflection. Watching those old clips spliced with present-day regret, I realised I used to sit there inwardly cheering. I wanted to believe in the punishment. Self-loathing fatty that I am, I wanted to believe fatness could be beaten out of us, them, me, like a demon. And if you didn't win, it was because you lacked the moral fibre. And that's the real rot at the centre of The Biggest Loser. It taught us that fat isn't just a body, it's a character flaw. The doco showed the scars, the ruined metabolisms, destroyed mental health, people yo-yoing their way into permanent damage. But here's what they didn't quite say. Those scars aren't just on the contestants. They're on everyone who watched, everyone who learned to hate their own reflection because the culture told us our worth could be read off a bathroom scale. It's not just that the contestants were abused, it's that the rest of us were trained to see that abuse is deserved. What I hated most was how familiar it all felt. The fake cheering, the brutal cuts to tears and sweat, the public weigh-ins where people's shamed were served up as family entertainment. I grew up marinating in that message. If you're fat, you're disgusting. If you're thin, you're safe. For now. The show wasn't a diet program. It was a morality play, and we all bought tickets. So yes, the documentary told the truth, but truth doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't erase the nights I went to bed hungry, convinced that pain was proof of virtue. The days I spend trying to make myself that little bit smaller, that little bit less so I don't take up quite as much room in the world, for fear of someone calling me out as fat, lazy, stupid, smelly. It doesn't quiet the voice in my head that still measures my worth in kilos decades later. Watching it was like seeing my abuser finally unmasked. Satisfying, but also sickening, because it reminded me of how willingly I'd played along. I loved it. I hated it. Mostly I mourned it, because while the circus has left town, the scars it left are permanent.
The way that you put words around how that felt, I think people should probably know that Ruth is a writer.
I was going to
And
say
that's
that.
why
It won't be any surprise to anyone who heard that. It was
that she's
so
a stunning,
beautiful.
stunning writer. I think that really speaks to the heart of this story, and actually like the trauma of people who grew up with this, because you can remember what this did to the culture, that it was the time when everyone knew every calorie count, and gyms were full of people who understood this to be punishment. And that show just reinforced that.
Yeah. And this wasn't a quick moment in time. Like this ran for 11 seasons in Australia, and I think even longer in the US. So this really did have a lasting impact on generations of people.
I think, after listening to Ruth's unbelievable perspective there, like I don't have very much to add at all. I watched this documentary and I felt astounded because it's about the American Biggest Loser for clarity. And at that show's peak, 11 million Americans were watching that show. And hundreds and thousands of people wanted to be on that show. And I think all the complexity of those facts are reflected in what Ruth just said. And to what you said in the intro, Stacey, where I think for a lot of women in particular, like the stats say that right now about 60% of Australians are actively trying to lose weight. Not just women, just Australians are actively trying to lose weight. So a very large percentage of the population can relate on some level to feeling like their body is wrong, right? And that women in particular are constantly being told that there is something wrong with our bodies, and no matter what size, no matter what the number on the scales, that we have a piece in this shame around being too greedy and wanting too much and eating the wrong things and all of that stuff. And that's all true. And I think that's why there was almost like a safety that people could watch The Biggest Loser, and whether they admit this to themselves or not, they could go, but I'm not those people. Do you know what I mean?
And that's mentioned in the documentary.
Yes. And I think that the thing is that so we can all relate to a piece of it, but I think what Ruth's unbelievable piece of writing that she just delivered says that we can relate to a piece of it, but we can't relate to that entire experience, and we shouldn't try and own any of that.
My twin sister Claire did her postgrad studies on the relationship between obesity and eating disorders, and this was something. There was a movement, and it's interestingly sort of lost a bit of momentum, but it was about health at any size, and how the experience of shame, according to every psychological study ever conducted, does not change behavior. In fact, shame around weight causes more issues than it prevents. The idea that shaming these people on a national platform would somehow lead to a revolution in people's relationship with their health was so misguided. And I think we can see that now. And it was steeped in all of these assumptions that we did see at the time, but I suppose with a step back, there's even more clarity. Like I remember Claire and I would write these recaps of The Biggest Loser, and it was through analysis and kind of going, let's just unpack that assumption. The assumption that everyone on that show had to admit that they were sad and that their lives had been a tragedy up until this point, and that the only way that they would be worthy mothers or worthy to their partners would be if they lost this weight. And that was also sending it back. Like there was one where this man, I'll never forget it, he stood up and he said, I'm not going to tell you I'm sad and depressed, I'm not. And one of the trainers looked at him, this was in Australia, and said, honestly. And it was like they all stood there until you admit that you are a failure. And I also want to just take a minute to look at the decline of this show in the context of Australia, because I remembered that it ended with a bit of a whimper. And I went, what happened? Because I remember there were all these iterations. There were children on it. There was
a town. Remember, it was like Australia's fattest town.
Yep. And there was all of this groundswell of criticism. So I think we tell ourselves the culture changed. The culture moved on. It's actually not what happened. What happened was the format of the show changed. The last season, they had a psychologist come in, and they would have like weekly sessions with a psychologist. They changed the challenges. There was no more temptation, where they basically encouraged and rewarded binge eating. They didn't make the people roll around in mud anymore. What they did was they went, can you cook a healthy meal for a family for $25? What's the healthiest way you can cook chicken? They made it like that, and it became, people went, oh, well, now it's boring.
Well, here's an interesting question, and we talked about this a little bit with the Jerry Springer documentary that came out, because we seem to be in a bit of a moment where we are revising our view of big cultural moments in terms of our current lens.
Yeah.
And on this documentary, they interview, the EPs, the creators of this show, and the argument is very similar to the Jerry Springer producers' argument, which is people love this shit. Everyone in media, there is a saying, really, do you give people more of what they want or less of what they want? And it is framed as a question that isn't a question, right? A rhetorical question. And so the defense of this kind of television has always been, but people love it. People are like getting inspired, but also are you really going to tell people what they should watch and what they shouldn't watch on TV? And that's a really interesting point around, because we were talking before about which shows of now we would look back on. And I'm not trying to draw a parallel, because I think as Ruth's amazing essay has made it clear, there are some very, very deep cuts here, but it's, will we look back on Married at First Sight and all these awful dating shows that we're watching with a trauma lens? in 10 to 20 years?
I think we will. I think that now we hear of something called duty of care, which didn't exist prior. And I think that the power dynamics have changed. But I do think looking back, because there was a documentary last year on America's Next Top Model. It wasn't as widely distributed. I actually haven't seen it, but that was also overdue, that analysed it. And part of me goes, we were all swimming in the same culture. Is Tyra Banks any more culpable than I am? Because I sat down and watched it every week. So there is a flaw in using the standards of the present to look back at a cultural moment and blame all the players. What I will say about watching this is that I looked at the producers and the trainers and I went, you're lacking some self-awareness. You're lacking a little bit of understanding of what you did and how it impacted people.
That was the overriding thing for me that stood out from watching it was they had Bob Harper on there, one of the original trainers. They didn't have Gillian Michaels. And even while we're recording this, Gillian Michaels has actually put the documentary on blast and come through with receipts refuting a lot of the claims. Whether that was because she felt such shame about her part in that she didn't want to be there.
I think that's a generous read.
Yes.
But she did decline.
She did decline being there, or she just wanted to separate herself from what she'd done. They didn't seem to understand the part they had played in making us all believe this cliche that has been around for so long. And I think the overriding feeling I had watching this was shame. Shame that I'd watched it and felt like it was okay. Watched it with my parents.
Yeah.
Was seen as a
It
very
was family-friendly
show. But also you can feel the shame of those contestants that they were so hopeful that this would work for them, even though they were seeing how contestants were treated on previous seasons, that they were willing to put themselves through being shamed even more in the hope that it would work.
The thing is that we have moved on from that, but we are still an intensely fat-phobic culture, as anybody knows. And it's interesting because our own Gillian Michaels, Michelle Bridges, has never outwardly condemned the Australian Biggest Loser. And she still has a weight loss company. And it's noticeable that her messaging now is all strong, not skinny. That's what we're all about these days, right?
Yeah.
But it's still, the diet culture of it all is still very sellable. And when I worked in magazines, diets sold every time. You had to have a diet on the cover, bullshit diet that someone had made up usually, celebrity body transformations. And now we see it on Instagram and we see it on Skinny Talk. And it's just moved platforms. It's just morphed. Now it's all about weight loss medication and we call it medical weight loss. And it's all still there. It's just like a shapeshifter.
And I watched this and I think it's almost impossible to watch this documentary not through the prism of weight loss drugs, which have become quite ubiquitous. And I thought, I wonder if the criticism of weight loss drugs is partly to do with our strong belief that you ought to be punished and that weight loss ought to be on the other side of hard work. It's just calories in and calories out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And some simplified version. I think that anyone who knows anything about weight knows how deeply psychological it is. But that show aimed to prove it's simple. All you have to do is this. And it lent into what makes, in inverted commas, great television, which is it was visual. We saw the pain. We saw the vomit. We saw the images of the punishment, and then we saw the transformation at the end. It was all visual, even though that is not what a journey like that looks like for most people. Ladies, while we sit at this round table, there is another fancier round table happening in Canberra.
I bet their snacks are better.
I bet they are too.
They've got some.
I bet there's someone who comes, takes their coffee orders.
And their cups are full.
Yes, I
know. Breaking the fourth wall.
Bullshit conditions. I have complaints. Treasurer Jim Chalmers says the point of the 3-day economic reform roundtable is to make our economy more productive over time. And guys, I have a confession. I came in this morning and I said, friends, I don't know what productivity means. I don't know. I keep reading it.
I'm glad you said it because I don't understand it either.
I'll tell you how it feels.
Thank you.
Right? It feels like there's a meeting in Canberra right now about how lazy we all are. And I, for one, do not appreciate it. I know somewhere in my brain that that's not what productivity means. But on behalf of me and our listeners, Gym Charmers, we are doing our best.
Yes, we are.
We're actually trying really hard.
I think you're right. I think that is what's happening in there. It's just like all just bitching about how lazy we all are. And Gina Reinhardt's in there and she's got a whip crack in and it's all just like, get your asses up and work, bitch. It feels like that.
And like, I didn't want to say this, but a 3-day meeting? Like, you know who's not having a 3-day meeting? Us. Who's got time for a 3-day meeting?
Could it have been an email?
Exactly. I Googled productivity to try and save face because I thought you can't go and say you don't know what it means. And it said, productivity means how good we are as a nation at producing output. And factors that impact productivity include tech improvement. So they always talk about like AI, how we can make AI make us more productive without putting in longer hours. Economies of scale. I don't really understand that. Scope. Don't understand that. Workforce skills, competitive pressures, la, 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 la. This meeting sounds so boring. I can't stand it.
Thank God we're not there.
And it's 3 days.
And it's 3 days. Oh my God. So I figured that given we're also having a meeting, albeit in another state, we'd come up with some ideas.
Yep.
Because we're being productive. We could help. We work very, very, very hard. We make a lot of podcasts, which Chalmers has not mentioned, not even once in his roundtable. You know, he's productive. Those bitches, they do 5 episodes a week.
We're working right now.
Exactly right. I'll start. Free Diet Coke at 3 p.m. I think as a nation, it's great for an afternoon pick-me-up. We know that not great things sometimes happen after 3 p.m. So I feel as though we could just all kind of just get that pick-me-up and just go through to the end of the afternoon. Holly, you're wise. You used to manage people. What did you do other than get out your whip?
Well, like you, I need a 3 p.m. pick. Anyone who's ever been in a meeting with me that goes towards 3 p.m., I get very twitchy about coffee, don't I? Very twitchy about coffee. So I would like it implemented that I need a coffee delivered to me at 3 p.m. or I will literally fall asleep at my desk. But generally, I was thinking about this. I think Albo maybe needs to go further with his TikTok ban because since he's banning it for people under 16, but I can only speak for myself. But since I've discovered gardening talk, my productivity in my actual garden has decreased significantly. Maybe the TikTok ban does not go far enough.
Yeah.
I think there's that. Single tasking should be outlawed, particularly for midlife men who like to watch every iteration of Star Wars on the couch on a Saturday afternoon. Like, that's not my life. Is that your life? Like,
definitely
sitting around, not doing anything?
The movies my dad finds time for on a Saturday afternoon to watch all afternoon. And it's like, do something with your hands, mate.
Fold some washing.
Yeah.
I've never watched a single show without my hands doing at least 2 other tasks at
do
the
your
same
ironing.
time.
He is not a peak productivity when he is rewatching Rocky 4.
No.
Banning bosses from saying, can I have a quick word? And then telling you about their weekends for 12 minutes when you would really rather be talking about your weekend with your work wife in the kitchen. These are just some of my suggestions.
What do you
I
think,
love them.
Stacey?
Okay, my first one. I think it'll be a crowd pleaser. I think it'll get through straight away. We've got to bring back siestas. Bring them back.
Yes.
Have we ever had them? We need to bring
How
in
long
siestas.
is a siesta allowed for?
I would ideally like an hour, but I'll take 20 minutes.
Okay.
At around 3 p.m. while you two are having your Coke Zero and your coffee, I just want to lay down for 20 minutes.
Little bed under the desk.
Yes, there is not a single mattress in this office,
No.
and that's just absurd. I would love to have a little kip.
Yeah.
That's my first one. Second one, maybe a bit more controversial. Less toilets.
Oh, no, more toilets. But I have things to tell you about toilets.
I have never worked faster than when I need to pee. If I need to pee and can't go and pee, I will get through so much. Don't you feel like you're in a race against time?
Yes, that's such a good – you know what? We all need a little bit more urgency.
Yes, and that'll crank it up a notch.
Oh, I love that. There was suggestions. I asked some people in the office and they said that maybe a little electric shock from your mouse. And I was like, that's actually a torture method. And then other people said – margarita on tap. And I was like, no, you just want margarita on tap. That's not going to help with your productivity.
Mouth tape? I could do with some mouth tape. I yap a lot.
I also think
mandatory mouth tape in the office.
I have a lot of male friends that are talking about the 3-hour podcast interviews they watch at work.
I know.
And they're like, I just have it up while I'm doing work.
No,
don't.
you don't.
This
So
is why
let's
they're
put
having
a time
the meeting.
cap on Joe Rogan is what you're suggesting?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of a YouTube ban. There we go. At work, along with your TikTok and your
You know,
Instagram.
but you wouldn't remember this because you were still at school, but in the when I first worked in offices when social media had been invented, and this was in magazines when we had to actually know about things that were going on in the world, our computers were blocked from having Facebook on them between 9 and 12 and then 1 and 6 or whatever, because you were not allowed, because in those days it was like, oh, Facebook, so tantalizing. What if I'd rather be talking to my high school boyfriend than doing my job? And they'd be like, no.
You would have missed some great status
what would
updates.
happen in this office in particular if we banned social, well, actually we couldn't do our jobs, but if we banned social media during the workday?
I know.
Bad things.
Bad.
Speaking about toilets and office toilets in particular, I have a really important question for the group.
Yes.
Do you have a favourite toilet in a line of 6 cubicles? Because if you walk into the toilets, whether at work or in another public space, and there are 5 toilets, 6 toilets, do you always choose the same one, and which one do you choose?
Yes.
Which one?
The end.
You are on track for your gender. What about you, Jessie Stevens?
Oh, maybe it depends on how much I need to wait. Sometimes I really need to wait. I don't get to the end. And so I go to the first one.
I've been thinking about this a lot, about which one would be the best to use, right?
Yeah.
Because in our old office, we had a private toilet.
Yeah.
One toilet that was on its own. It was really good. Those were the days.
Toilet.
Yeah, the poo toilet. Let's
be real. That's what it was.
We don't have that anymore. We have a cubicle. Anyway, apparently statistically, in a line of 6 toilets, the most popular one is the middle one, always, right?
Yeah, I'd probably go middle. Yeah.
They have done studies where they see which ones go through the most toilet paper in time, and it is the middle one always. But there is a gender divide. Women go to the end. But if you are worried about hygiene, you should always pick the first, because it is the least used.
Oh, that is so interesting.
Wow.
But do you have an emotional attachment to the cubicle you always use?
I actually will revise my answer now and say that sometimes I'll go from the second from the end, just so you don't look like you're in there doing what you don't want people to think you're in there doing.
I'm going to add just another point to it. So I walk in and let's say, Stacey, you're in the last one.
Yes.
And let's say, Holly, you're in the first one.
Oh, yeah.
You always go to the cubicle that is furthest from the other people in it out of respect.
What kind of psychos
Get
go
in
into the one next to you when there are 3 free?
Exactly. I hear them go in and I'm like, can we just have a little bit of privacy? And then the conversation continues and you're like, how's your day been? And you're like, this is too much. Can I add another fun toilet fact? Sure. I had a friend who went to Glastonbury recently. Did you know that the toilets at Glastonbury, they only really cover your private parts and the rest of you is on full display to discourage drug use?
Wow.
Because a lot
I don't
of
think
people,
it's working. I've seen videos on Glastonbury.
Yeah, so that people aren't going and snorting and sniffing and whatever. Can you imagine though, you're going to the toilet and everyone's just looking in the eye? Yeah.
I would not be peeing for 5 days. No. As a tall person, that is so much of my body exposed to the world.
It would cover none of you.
Friends, I don't think I need to introduce Mel Robbins to you in this moment, do I? She is pretty ubiquitous in the culture. She is the biggest self-help guru in the world right now. She is the creator of the Let Them theory. She has the #1 podcast. She's everywhere. And this week, she was on No Filter with our very own Kate Langbrook. She said lots of stuff. It was all very useful, but there's one thing I want to talk about, and it is kitchen cabinets. Take it away, Mel Robbins.
Jealous. Oh my God. I literally wanted to die. Have you ever had a friend who all of a sudden they move to the fancier town, or they move from renting an apartment to this brownstone that they buy, and then they invite you over for dinner. And as you're driving up the long driveway, you're thinking, how the hell do they have this much money? And then they open up the door and you're happy for your friend because your friend works hard and your friend deserves to be happy, but you're just not happy for yourself because as you're gripping the wine glass and you're gritting your teeth trying to smile that fake smile, and every single corner of their house looks like a display on Pinterest, and then you turn the corner and there is your dream kitchen. And she's got the white cabinets and the marble countertops. And you're like, you bitch, I shouldn't have shown you my Pinterest boards. You stole my kitchen. Right. And then you literally, if you're anything like me at the time, because this happened to me, this particular story, when we were still really struggling financially, you hold it together. And then when you get in the car and you go to drive away, you turn to your poor partner and you're like, why couldn't you have been in finance? Why did you have to be a nice person? Why couldn't you make money? Like, you just like aim it at them. Oh my God, it was so bad.
Okay, so champagne problems, right? We
Yeah.
could say fancy houses and kitchen renovations are not everybody's jealousy trigger. But what Robbins went on to say about jealousy, which was that for her at the time, it was a motivator that made her want to own her own damn kitchen. And we can only assume that now she's worth tens of millions of dollars, her cabinets are pretty specky. But she also went on to say that you only ever envy things you really, really want. And that's why sometimes listening to your jealousy is a very good way to measure what matters to you. She said, for example, she's not jealous of the dude with a yellow Lamborghini because she's genuinely not interested in having a yellow Lamborghini, even if you've got all the money in the world. And then she said, there's no finite number of fancy kitchens, podcasts, et cetera, And she did her whole very Mel Robbins-y go out and get it, go out and work for it, which ignores a lot of very deep-seated structural inequalities that we won't get into today. That's for another time. But what it did make me want to ask is, what are you two jealous of? And what does it tell you about what matters to you?
I am jealous of people who couch rot on the weekends.
Yeah.
I am jealous of people who don't have bags under their eyes. I am jealous of people who can not tuck their shirt in and look cool, because I still have to do the millennial tuck.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, there's lots of things that I would like.
So those first things all say that you're jealous of people who have more leisure time than you because you've got a young child.
Yes, that's right.
And
I'm in
a busy
the
job.
early motherhood season. And I think that is the thing that Mel is failing to realise, is that sometimes you're jealous of things you can't get, and they might be things you already had once upon a time. What about you, Jessie?
So do you feel that? Do you feel envy for like things that you once had that you don't have anymore?
Yes. And I think it doesn't mean that couldn't come back to me, but
Yeah.
I definitely do feel jealousy when I look at people on their European holidays or when they're hiking the Inca Trail. I don't want to hike the Inca Trail, but I'd like the option to go and hike the Inca
Yeah,
Trail this
right.
week if I want to. So I definitely do feel like I am jealous of the freedom that I knew once, that you don't have as much when you're raising little kids. And I wouldn't change the fact that I don't have that as much now, because I love raising my little kid, but it definitely is something that no amount of jealousy and no amount of inspiration is going to get back for me at this moment.
Yeah. I have some really specific examples of jealousy, and I'm with you about the European holiday. I think that there's something about that image at the moment that feels like that's not something I'm going to experience in the way I want to experience it for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to see. And I do feel jealous because I want that. But there was, I think just in the last 48 hours, I thought, Zara previously worked with Mamamia, firstly is in Europe. So I went, oh, come on. So she's in Europe. But she posted this carousel of what she wore in Europe.
Oh,
and
it's
these
amazing.
outfits were stunning. And I looked at it and I went, oh, I can feel the jealousy rising. And then I went, Jessie Stevens, I thought you didn't care.
That's what I was going to say.
I thought I didn't care
That's
about
interesting.
outfits. And so I then went, why am I feeling jealous right now? And I thought, I'm feeling jealous because of how good it must feel to put an outfit together like that. Know how great it looks and walk out into the world. And I went,
confidence.
There was something about that I went, maybe you do need to think more about clothes, and maybe you'd feel a bit happier if you looked like that.
Maybe we need to stop wearing this shirt every day and put in some effort.
That is interesting, because maybe it's the confidence to know. Because if we're,
I think I'm jealous of her skill at putting together those outfits, but I know I don't have it and I don't know how to get it.
If we're working on the theory that your jealousy tells you something about where you should be or where you should be putting your energy, that says to me that's about confidence.
I think so. And I also wondered, I actually disagree with a point of Mel Robbins's theory, because there is a man in my life that I know who is very, very values driven and doesn't care about money. That's been a feature of his personality. Doesn't care about money. And every choice, from job to house to whatever, he just goes, that's not what I value. These are my values. I don't care about money. He is the first person to notice the fancy car. He's the first person to notice the house that someone's moved into.
But noticing isn't the same as being envious of it.
The way he talks has made me feel like why are you so obsessed with these things if you don't want them? And I was speaking to another friend recently and we said, I wonder sometimes if we're all just so cognizant of markers of success and we go, I don't necessarily want that. But if you don't interrogate your jealousy enough, sometimes I think you get confused and you fixate on those things. I reckon if this guy sat down with himself and went, why am I jealous? Why am I noticing this? Then he'd go, you actually don't want it. You're just noticing it because you know it's what society values. I think I've had the same thing probably with beauty, with looking at women that are stunning. And I go, I wish my face looked like that. I wish it was easier. Like, she doesn't even have to wear makeup and look at her beautiful hair. And then you kind of drill down, you go, it's not what I want. And you're able to kind of leave it and move forward. I think that happens as you age. Holly, what do you feel jealous about?
I think some of us are more prone to jealousy than others, right? I am not a very jealous person in general. And I've spoken about this on the podcast before, and Jessie knows this story. But a few years ago, I was absolutely devastated by jealousy towards you, right? Remember?
Why?
It was when Jessie sold her first book in America. I promise that isn't true. What it was I go around my life going, I'm not a jealous person. I'm happy for other people's successes, right? Like, and generally speaking, that is true, right? I don't tie myself up with it. So I was really floored by this feeling I had at that time. It was Jessie's first book and it was very successful and the thing that was funny, and we have told this story before, so bear with me, long time out louders. But the thing that was really funny for Mia and I is that we were giving Jessie all this advice about her first book and we were like, keep your expectations low. Nobody makes any money writing books and you probably won't sell very much and your advance will be whatever. And like we were being like the wise aunties, right? And then Jessie's brilliant Heartsick, which is genuinely brilliant, and you only had to read it to be like floored by how clever and smart and beautiful it was. But anyway, was the subject of a bidding war in the US and changed many things. And me and Mia were like, oh, okay. But the thing that surprised me, and again, I've told Jessie this before, so it's not like, is that I was like, I literally couldn't sleep. Like I was consumed by it and it really knocked me around because it's not what I'm like, right? Usually at all. And so I had to interrogate it and we talked about it and I owned up to it and everything. And the thing is, I have genuinely moved past that. Like I genuinely have. Like I have no jealous feelings towards Jessie. I'm friends with lots of very successful authors, or I know, that makes me sound very like that. I know lots of successful authors. I'm not caught up with jealousy about like Sally Hepworth, who's a friend of ours, who is enormously successful, New York Times bestseller and all those things. I've worked through it. But what that taught me was it was a very deep wake up about the recognition and success that I clearly really wanted.
Yeah.
Where I was very much kind of going at that time in my life, well, I'm just happy to be here. And I've always sort of told myself that I'm just happy to be here. And clearly there was something about that moment that really like rocked me on the inside. Babe, you're not just happy to be here. You want that. And that's okay. Like it's okay to want that because, and Mel Robbins, even though, as I said, I think she's very much oversimplifying the idea that anyone can get what they want and all that. It's nonsense. It's not true. But it is true that Jessie's success or anyone else's success does not take away from mine. Like, and that is a lesson that sounds like bullshit, but when you actually really learn it, it's true. There is not a finite number of successful books or whatever it might be. And so I think I have learned a lot about jealousy, but I think it's true that it points you to things that really matter. At the moment, for example, I'm definitely jealous of people with financial security. It's not about big houses and cars. It's because I'm at the point in my life where I feel like I can see a finite number of earning years ahead of me. And like everyone else in Australia and the world, you're like, fuck, how do I do the rest of my life with this mortgage still and like that? So when I see people, that brings out that the voice in you that's like, must be nice. The must be nice voice comes out for me when I'm like, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I've definitely had that. And that's real.
And I'm also jealous of people whose parents, because again, it's all about your phase of life, the same way who are parents who are healthy and available to them. Like I definitely have that. So I think it is interesting. I think it tells you a lot about your life stage, but also can be a real like, not a motivator in like, I'm going to go out there and crush it.
No, I think it's clarifying. is really clarifying to go, this is what's coming up. I think that at that stage too, you were suppressing your competitiveness. I've always thought you're competitive, but there's something about your upbringing or something where you don't lean into it. And it's like, you're allowed to feel that. And I remember seeing an image of Elizabeth Day, the podcaster, in front of a big billboard of her podcast. And I was like, well, I want a billboard in my podcast. You know, you just have these moments where you're like, and I think that not suppressing that, probably saying it out loud, is really good for you and means that you're not resenting. I mean, another example of jealousy actually would be around fertility. I've had that enormously over the last period of my life, where you feel as though you desperately want a baby and someone posts that they're pregnant and it is like an attack, and you know that it's not, and you know that that jealousy won't exist in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, but in the moment you feel it. And that's exactly it, that you go, I want that to be my announcement. And that's like a deeply human thing, I think.
Yeah.
You'll be happy to hear that Kate pointed out to Mel, as I'm sure like lots of people who are hearing us talk about all the things we're talking about will be like, lots of people are jealous of you, right? That is also, like Kate said that to Mel Robbins. Lots of people must be jealous of you, Mel Robbins. You're worth tens of millions of dollars. Look at you. I'm sure your kitchen cabinets, as I said, are very nice. And her response, guess what it was? Let them.
I so deeply related to the example that Mel used because I had this exact circumstance with friends. We went to our friend's beautiful new house that they'd built. They'd worked very hard to earn this house. I would have thought that I would be perfectly fine and not at all jealous. And when I got in the car, I completely crashed out after we saw how beautiful their house was, to my husband saying, we're both so stupid for marrying for love. Like, why did we marry each other? We're both journalists. We're never going to have that house. And I hated myself for that, and to the point where my best friend, who'd also been at the house, sent me a text, knows me very well, and said, I know you're crashing out about that house. Don't spiral. It's okay. You will get to that if that's what you want. And I think that's kind of the flaw in Mel's argument, is that some of us realistically might not get to that. I'm not going to get that house, and that's okay. But that does clarify, okay, well, that's something I can be working towards. Maybe I do want the fancy white cabinets like Mel Robbins does. Look, the real reason I'm on the show today, I went and locked Em Burnham and Amelia Lester in a meeting room so that I could barge in here to talk to you about this because I needed your thoughts. So after the huge success of Netflix's doco called Beckham in 2023, focused on
good.
David Beckham, it was so good, wasn't it? We ate up every single minute of it. So now Netflix is going to release a new documentary next month with the very original title, Victoria Beckham, which is about Victoria Beckham, more focused on her. I know, groundbreaking. Obviously, the world has been obsessed with this family for decades. So no doubt it will cover her being in the Spice Girls, her fashion career, her family life.
Body image apparently is a big thing.
Yeah, big part of her brand. Obviously, the world has been obsessed with this family for decades. So it'll no doubt cover, you know, her time in the Spice Girls, meeting David, her fashion career. But what I'm really interested in is how they are going to cover their family life when they are currently estranged from their eldest son, Brooklyn. So to rewind a little bit for people who have lives and don't know every single inch of this story like I do, David and Victoria most notably weren't at their son's vow renewal. He's been married for a whole 3 years, guys. He had a vow renewal to Nicola Peltz Beckham last month, and his family, who have always previously been very close with him, been in attendance at all of these things, weren't there. And then Brooklyn and Nicola weren't in attendance at David Beckham's 50th birthday. So it's very well documented that they're not on speaking terms right now.
It's inarguable at this point. For a while it was scurrilous gossip. It is actually now unquestionably true.
Exactly. So what I'm interested to know, Hol, is how do you think they are going to cover their family life and their family situation at the moment when it's such a big part of their brand, but it is very much not ideal at the moment?
It's very tricky, right? Because as you said, the thing about the Beckhams is being a tight family is a massive part of their brand, and they're all expected to support each other all the time in everything they do. I think there's like a human answer to this, and then there's a brand Beckham answer to this, right? And the human answer to it, in my opinion, is postpone the doco, right? Like if your son isn't speaking to you and you are truly a deeply family person, like just this isn't the time for a Vicky B doco, and it'll be okay next year, mate, because hopefully wounds will heal. Who knows, right? I don't think that's going to happen because I think there's way too much money on the table. And so they've got 3 choices, and I'd love to know which one you think they'll go with. If they're going to do the doco, they either say something without saying anything much. So sort of like a statement at some point that they'll work in, probably when there's like footage again of them all at a family barbecue, and like there was in the first one, and Becca and Brooklyn is notably absent, and they could have something like, you know, we really miss Brooklyn. We're very sad about what happened. Out of respect for his privacy, we're not going to go into it, but the door is always open. Like just a very bland.
Yeah.
No mention of it at all is the second option. Just pretend it's not happening, which would be weird. And the third option is to spill. And they wouldn't do that in a million years, I don't think, because it is that will send everything nuclear. As soon as they start going, well, it was Nicola, it was that Nicola in the wedding dress, and her whole family don't like our whole family, and they make us feel like povos because our yacht's really tiny. Like if they start doing that, then imagine how nuclear the other side's going to go with their billions of dollars. So I think they're all difficult choices. Which one do you think?
There's actually a fourth option, which has been floated, which is that they have a lot of footage from early in the documentary filming process of them with Brooklyn and Nicola, like before when things are normal.
Mention. That's the no mention.
Yeah, well, it is the no mention, but it's like you kind of use that. You act like everything's fine, and you don't acknowledge it. What's hard is that
think you can do that, because then they would come out and say, there would be legals. There would be like, we don't want to be in the documentary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's hard because authenticity is so vital to their brand as well. And I worry about overexposure because the other Beckham documentary was done so recently. But what you don't want is this to turn into a Meghan and Harry style, back and forth. It just doesn't. The UK is too obsessed with these tabloid stories. I think it's dangerous. I go with the option of they semi-acknowledge it and give us absolutely no tea. Yeah. What do you reckon?
Because that's what they did with the infidelity in the David one.
Yeah, they did.
They touched it. They showed some headlines, some of which were allegedly altered. They showed some headlines to say that it had happened, but no tea.
Yeah. I think they will skirt as far as they can skirt around this issue, but I think they're smart enough to know that if they completely erase them, that is almost worse. That is sending a message to Brooklyn and Nicola that there's no chance of reconciliation here. So I think it will be, as you say, it will be a little drop, a little crumb for them to pick up, enough that we see, okay, they're acknowledging that they're not speaking right now. We weren't going crazy. This is true, but they will not comment on it further. I think that would be so silly to do that.
Out Louders, gosh, I hope you've enjoyed this show. I've enjoyed this show.
Me too.
Yeah.
Funner than that other stupid meeting.
I'm glad we're not productivity roundtable.
We could have done it in an hour. We are very productive.
Look how much we covered. We're so productive. Anyway,
can you imagine being invited? Oh, I'm so glad they didn't invite us.
Decline
that one.
Stacey, thank you so much for jumping in for Amelia today. We so appreciate it. And thank you to all of our Out Louders for being here with us, and to our incredible team, very much including our wonderful executive producer, Ruth. Love yous, and we will see you all tomorrow.
And if you're looking for something else to listen to, then we did a special subscriber episode yesterday all about the end of And Just Like That. Stacey, have you finished watching that show?
I bowed out about 3 episodes into the last season.
I
tried. I really tried.
I tried too. And I went, look, I actually do want to know what happened, but I'm going to need you to tell me because I'm not going back there. So,
okay, great. This is perfect.
Amelia and Holly got me across it. They had a lot of feelings, a lot of speculation about what happened behind the scenes. Bye.
Bye.